Before superheroes ruled the box office, it was prophets, saints, and saviors who filled the silver screen with awe. These films captivated audiences by blending faith-driven stories with groundbreaking visual effects, unforgettable performances, and large-scale productions. They weren't just entertainment. They were cinematic pilgrimages, aiming to move hearts and minds alike. This era saw filmmakers striving to bring biblical and historical narratives to life with unmatched emotional and visual intensity. Through sweeping music, elaborate sets, and timeless storytelling, they brought sacred moments to mainstream screens. Let's explore 10 influential films from that time that shaped the way faith was portrayed in film and still resonate today. Joan of Arc. Ingrid Bergman's lifelong desire to portray the legendary French saint came to fruition in this emotionally charged drama about Joan's divine visions and military leadership. Her performance as the fearless young woman who defied kings and armies is infused with raw emotion and conviction. The film's use of Technicolor, inspired by medieval manuscripts, creates a visually rich world that echoes the period's sacred art. Director Victor Fleming chose to portray Joan's spiritual encounters through subtle cues, wind, light, and sound, rather than literal visuals, adding mystery and reverence. The trial scenes, where Joan passionately defends her visions under pressure, still stand as powerful testaments to spiritual conviction in cinema. This film also marked a turning point for female-led religious epics. Joan's unwavering courage against institutional power struck a chord with post-war audiences. Bergman's portrayal helped humanize a saint often painted only in myth, adding layers of empathy and spiritual fire. The Robe. As the first motion picture shot in the CinemaScope format, The Robe introduced audiences to a more expansive and immersive cinematic experience. The story follows Marcellus Gallio, a Roman officer whose life changes after he wins Christ's robe in a dice game and begins to question everything he believes. Richard Burton's intense and nuanced performance brought depth to a man torn between empire and faith. The film's grand sets and sweeping musical score matched the scale of its spiritual themes, ushering in a wave of toga-clad religious blockbusters. It also set a precedent for sequels in religious cinema, leading directly to Demetrius and the Gladiators. Beyond its technical innovation, The Robe served as a bridge between classic storytelling and modern cinematic spectacle. It used format as a form of emotional depth, widening the screen to match the moral and spiritual struggles within. Its success signaled to Hollywood that faith and visual scale could go hand in hand. The Ten Commandments. Cecil B. DeMille's The Ten Commandments remains one of the most iconic religious films in history, celebrated for both its epic scope and moral resonance. Charlton Heston's portrayal of Moses became instantly iconic, as did the unforgettable command, "Let my people go." DeMille went all out, enlisting thousands of extras and animals to recreate the grandeur of ancient Egypt, investing what would now equal over $130 million in production. The parting of the Red Sea was a cinematic breakthrough, combining practical effects and visual trickery to create one of film's most enduring miracles. Its annual airing during Easter and Passover solidified it as a generational tradition for many families. What made the Ten Commandments stand out was its fusion of drama and devotion. It wasn't just a spectacle, it was a sermon told with thunder and fire. DeMille's ambition was not just to entertain, but to make audiences feel the power of divine justice on a mythic scale. Ben-Hur. Ben-Hur, directed by William Wyler, redefined what was possible in cinematic storytelling with its record-setting 11 Academy Awards and legendary chariot race sequence. Spanning nearly 10 minutes and taking 3 months to film, the race scene remains a masterclass in practical action and crowd coordination. Charlton Heston, playing Judah Ben-Hur, trained rigorously to perform much of his own stunt driving, adding authenticity to the adrenaline-fueled sequence. But beyond the spectacle, the film tells a deeply spiritual story of vengeance transformed into forgiveness through quiet but powerful encounters with Christ, who is shown only from behind, maintaining reverence and mystery. Ben-Hur elevated the religious epic into something personal. It used Christ not as a character, but as a moral force that reshaped lives. The film's emotional payoff comes not from triumph in battle, but from inner peace, something few blockbusters dare to aim for. Quo Vadis. Set during the brutal reign of Emperor Nero, Quo Vadis offers a grand, emotionally charged portrait of early Christianity in the face of Roman oppression. Peter Ustinov delivers a hauntingly theatrical performance as Nero, a delusional and self-absorbed ruler whose cruelty defines the empire's collapse. The title, meaning, "Where are you going, Lord?" comes from a legendary moment when Peter sees a vision of Christ returning to Rome, prompting him to face martyrdom instead of fleeing. MGM's lavish production included over 30,000 extras and intricate recreations of ancient Roman streets, palaces, and the Colosseum. The scenes of Christians singing hymns while awaiting death in the arena remain some of cinema's most moving depictions of faith under fire. This film marked a turning point in how martyrdom was visualized on screen, with grace and dignity, not just gore. It invited viewers to reflect on courage as a spiritual act, not merely a historical footnote. Its success helped solidify the epic martyr subgenre that would influence later religious films for decades. The greatest story ever told. George Stevens' sweeping biblical epic aimed to present the life of Jesus with reverence, beauty, and deep spiritual stillness. Max von Sydow, cast as Jesus, brings a calm, almost ethereal presence to the role, avoiding theatrics in favor of gentle authority. In a bold, creative choice, the film used Monument Valley and other American landscapes to stand in for the Holy Land, an artistic risk that divided audiences. The film is also known for its unusual roster of celebrity cameos, including John Wayne's unforgettable appearance as a Roman centurion. Stevens filmed many scenes like tableau, evoking the stillness of religious artwork, with careful framing and symbolic lighting. Though the pacing was slower than many of its peers, it gave the story a meditative tone rarely seen in religious cinema. The film sought to elevate not just the story of Christ, but the feeling of the sacred. Its ambition was less about action and more about creating a sustained spiritual atmosphere, like a cinematic prayer. The Song of Bernadette. In this quietly powerful drama, Jennifer Jones portrays Bernadette Soubirous, a humble village girl whose visions of the Virgin Mary at Lourdes transform her life and stir up fierce controversy. The film never definitively confirms or denies the supernatural elements, instead focusing on Bernadette's unwavering sincerity and the reactions of those around her. Director Henry King leans on subtle cues, glowing light, swelling music, and close-up expressions, to suggest the presence of the divine. Vincent Price gives a surprisingly layered performance as a skeptical official whose resistance softens as Bernadette's quiet dignity persists. The now famous tagline perfectly encapsulates the film's mystery. For those who believe in God, no explanation is necessary. For those who do not believe in God, no explanation is possible. The film walks a fine line between piety and realism, making it resonate with believers and skeptics alike. It explores the social and political tension that surrounds spiritual experiences. More than a story about miracles, it's about the emotional cost of being believed, or not. King of Kings. Nicholas Ray's King of Kings took the bold step of making Jesus the central figure, played by the youthful and striking Jeffrey Hunter. Unlike earlier films that kept Jesus on the narrative's fringes, this production places him directly at the heart of the action, portraying him as both divine and deeply human. The character of Barabbas, a violent revolutionary, serves as a sharp contrast to Jesus' peaceful teachings, giving the film a strong political edge. Ray's past work in youth rebellion dramas informs his take on biblical figures, adding psychological nuance to characters like Judas and Mary. Critics joked about the casting, calling it "I was a teenage Jesus," but Hunter's sincerity gives the role quiet strength. The film doesn't shy away from Rome's brutality or the social unrest of the time, grounding the gospel story in a context of real danger and division. Ray's direction brings a sense of urgency to the story without losing its reverence. Visually rich and thematically daring, it invited younger generations to see Jesus not as distant icon, but as relatable and radical. Going My Way. This Oscar-winning classic shifts the religious epic inward, telling a small-scale but heartfelt story of a young priest, Father O'Malley, who revitalizes a struggling parish with compassion and modern ideas. Bing Crosby's easygoing charm and warm singing voice made the role iconic, pairing beautifully with Barry Fitzgerald's portrayal of the grumpy but lovable Father Fitzgibbon. The film's setting, a modest New York neighborhood, feels intimate and real, grounding faith in the routines of ordinary life. Rather than epic battles or miracles, the conflict here lies in generational differences and stubborn traditions. Released during World War II, the film offered comfort and nostalgia to American soldiers abroad, reminding them of the values they were fighting for. Its humor and musical interludes made it accessible to a wide audience, regardless of religious background. More than anything, it showed that kindness and progress could exist within tradition. It was a love letter to community, resilience, and the quiet power of spiritual leadership. The Keys of the Kingdom. Gregory Peck delivers a quietly powerful performance as Father Francis Chisholm, a Scottish priest sent on a long mission to rural China where he dedicates his life to service and understanding. The film spans decades of his life, requiring Peck to age from an idealistic young man to a weathered yet compassionate elder, a transformation he carries with grace and restraint. What sets this film apart is its commitment to showing interfaith respect, as Chisholm forms deep bonds with locals of different beliefs. His willingness to question rigid church structures and defend the dignity of others makes him one of the most progressive religious characters of the era. Director John M. Stahl's use of contrasting landscapes, Scotland's grey hills and China's vivid villages, mirrors Chisholm's inner evolution. This film is less about conversion and more about connection. It challenges the idea of superiority in missionary work, offering a humble model of spiritual leadership. In many ways, The Keys of the Kingdom was ahead of its time, advocating cultural respect and emotional intelligence long before it was common on screen. These 10 cinematic treasures mark a period when Hollywood dared to treat spiritual themes with artistic ambition and emotional depth. They showcase how film can be more than spectacle; it can be sacred storytelling. Whether portraying saints, sinners, or seekers, these stories echo with questions we still ask today. What does it mean to believe? What does it cost to follow conviction? And how does faith survive in a world of doubt?